To our panelists, hello to our online participants. We welcome you to this series of the Kikao Junction, where this time around we're talking about, largely talking about building resilience, LGBT plus organizing in Kenya. And this session is so passionate to us because as a queer movement in Kenya, we've really traveled a journey that we are passionate about speaking it out and also just sharing to the world. I am Stephen Okwine. I work with Talanta Africa, and I'll be your host for today. I'm joined with a team of competent panelists who will have their moment to do themselves. But at this point in time, I just want to inform you that this is part of the series of conversations that we'll be having around queer organizing in Kenya and the different component, different aspects that contribute to the awesome organizing as a movement. Additionally, I just want to inform you that this is brought to us courtesy of a humble support from ForumCiv, Hub Eastern and Southern Africa through the back donor, the Swedish Embassy. And also to invite you to just be very active in terms of just sharing your comments, sharing your thoughts, sharing your questions to the different panelists who will have the chance to speak to us. In this panel today, I am joined by the lovely Paula. We know as Paula, but in this respect to this virtual event, we'll call her Paula Abor. Paula Abor is actually a key player in terms of queer organizing in Kenya, having led in the formation of different queer convenings. For example, we have 3W in Western Kenya. We have Nyarwek in Western Kenya as well. And currently, she's the executive director of Ujami Moja, Kenya. Additionally, we are joined by the one and only Dayo Atieno, TDML, the Dayo Miloch. Yes, all the way from Coast, working with the initiative for equality and non-discrimination, that is INED. INED is actually located at the coast but works in the entire country, and she's currently the advocacy officer at INED. We are also joined by the man himself, Mauricio Ochieng. Mauricio Ochieng leads the Trans Support CBO, which is also an organization in Western Kenya working aggressively around supporting the trans movement in Kenya and also trans organizing in Kenya. We are again also joined by Fred Abayo. Fred Abayo from CASH. Fred Abayo is actually the field officer at Keeping Alive Society's Hope, having worked lately with the GBMSM organizing in Western Kenya, and additionally also being pronounced in the female sex worker movement, offering care and treatment and support to the female sex worker movement in Western Kenya and Kenya at large. So welcome to our panelists, welcome to our viewership, welcome to ForumCiv staff and colleagues for following this conversation live. Without wasting my time, I'll just want to also, because I just said that the names are in random, I want to give a minute to each and every panelist just to introduce themselves again, and also just to inform us where they are from and what they do. I'll start with the lovely Paula Roba.
Thank you so much, Steve, and thank you and the panelists. And thank you for inviting me to this panel so that we can share about our journeys. So my name is Paula Abor, commonly known as Paula Roba. I am currently leading the organization called Ujami Moja Kenya, or in short, UMOK. Ujami Moja Kenya is a rural organizing that is situated in Kakamega and Vihiga counties. And we are also on the journey of movement building, especially in this region. But my journey with the movement started way back in 2007 when, during the World Social Forum, is when we discovered that we have LGBTI people also in Kenya. And it gave birth to formation of many organizations and organizing and shaped the organizing for us in Western Kenya and also the entire country. I think in brief for now, that is what I can say about me.
Well, thank you very much, Paula, for that introduction. I'll move over to Dayo Atieno. Dayo, if you can hear us. Oh, seems like Dayo might be having a challenge with the net. We'll move to Fred Abayo. Fred, if you could introduce yourself.
Thank you very much, Steve. Thank you very much, Steve. Good morning, everyone. I'm glad to be part of this panel. My name is Fred Abayo from Keeping Alive Society's Hope. CASH targets key population, but our focus is on care and treatment and human rights, a violation that happens to the key population persons. Just as Steve said, I've been in program for some time, and I have specific organizations that were started through my leadership. We have Tugutuke for MSM, Men for Positive Living, Kimaswo for male sex workers in Kisumu, Salina for MSMs who are touts in Kisumu, and Visions Brothers, which is targeting the bisexual community. So I'm glad to be here. I would like to share our journey and maybe share some of the experience. And if you have any concerns or questions that maybe needs to be responded to, I believe we have an able team that will respond to that as we continue supporting the community at large. Thank you, Steve.
We'll move over to Mauricio Chen. Mauricio.
Thanks so much to Steve for the invitation. I'm happy to be part of this panel. My name is Mauricio Chen, and I lead an organization called Trans Support Organization, which is for intersex, transgender, and gender non-conforming people who live in Western Kenya. I'm also one of the human rights defenders in this region, that's Western Kenya, who has been working since 2011 to make sure that safety and security for the LGBT persons is well taken care of. I'm part of the movement since 2011. I can say that it's almost 10 years being in the movement, just immediately after my Form 4. So I can say that I know a lot of history in terms of the movements in Western region and also in Kenya. I have mentored so many people on human rights field, and I can say I've mentored more than 600 people who are now recognized human rights defenders in East Africa. And I'm proud, also I'm a proud transgender guy and a proud transgender founder of the Western Kenya transgender movement. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mauricio, for that. It's glad to have Dayo back. So Dayo, you could have your minute.
I'm sorry about that internet issue. So my name is Dayo Atieno, as you've mentioned. I work with INEND, Initiative for Equality and Non-Discrimination, as the advocacy officer. So INEND is a local not-for-profit organization that then undertakes strategic actions towards equality, acceptance, and inclusion in the coastal region. My journey in the movement, I got into the organizing way back, not way back, but way later when the organizing was already thrived in Kenya, and that was in 2017. But even that, I got, I could say I got the ground laid already, but there's still work to be done, and I'm glad to be part of that team that is working on the ground. So yeah, thank you.
Pleasure, Dayo. It's interesting to just hear the wealth of knowledge we have around queer organizing in Western Kenya, and we are so much humbled to have you as a panel today. So just to remind our viewership that this conversation is live on both YouTube and Facebook pages for ForumCiv. So you can just go to ForumCiv, have Eastern and Southern Africa, then you'll find the conversation there. We'll be interested to just get your perspectives, your feelings, and your questions in regards to this conversation. Please feel free to direct a question specifically to our panelists for ease of response. So without wasting much more time again, I just want to remind us that this is brought to us courtesy of a series of conversations that we're having together with ForumCiv, Eastern and Southern Africa, under the Kikao Junction series. So stay tuned for even more other conversations. To get into the conversation now, I'll really start with Paula, being that you've been in the movement for quite a long time, and in terms of organizing, when organizing is it's spoken about in Kenya, then your name does not go unmentioned. So I just want to understand from you, how far have we come as a movement in Kenya? Do we have case scenarios, and of course, looking at the case scenario of the Western Kenya Queer Organizing? Over to you, Paula. Oh, Paula, you can get me? Okay. Okay. Paul, I think you're on mute. If you could kindly unmute.
Okay.
Yes, please proceed.
Can you hear me?
Yes, loud and clear.
All right, so asante. So, as I said, my name is Paula. Again, I'm popularly known as Paula Roba, but I'm Paula Abur. And I already introduced myself before with what I do. I was part of from the inception for Kenya, actually. So our journey for Kisumu, and especially Western Kenya, goes back to 2007 when we had the World Social Forum. And the World Social Forum was held in Kenya, in Nairobi. And during that time, we did not know so much about the movement, and people were scattered, people didn't know each other. There was no proper organizing anywhere. So when people met at the World Social Forum, the people who came from outside Kenya, especially the US and other countries, were very vocal to ensure that the rainbow flag is seen. And that is when now we discovered that we have actually LGBT people in this forum. So we hooked up with this team in the forum, and from there, Minority Women in Action, MOA, was born. And then when MOA was born and formed, then we had people like Akina Kinyi, Akina Pauline Kimani, and the rest of them. We realized that we moved to Kisumu in 2009. So when we moved to Kisumu in 2009, we realized that every other gathering that we had or any other meeting that we had to hold, we had to go back to Nairobi. So we decided that it is good for us to have an organizing in Western Kenya. So a few of us formed the organizing, and we started, then the organizing, we used to meet in places, in odd places like the bars, the clubs. Then it became very suspicious for us. And then people are discovering themselves and were very excited about discovering others as well. So there was a lot of affection that was being shown openly, and it became very dangerous for us. So then I happened to be the only one who was having a house in Kisumu, maybe and a few others. But then I offered a space for people in my house, however small it was, so that we could meet there instead of fearful places like the clubs and the bars where we used to meet. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Paula. Yeah.
Yes. So we started the meetings in my house, became like a space for everybody. It became an office for everyone, a safe space for everyone. And through that space, we were able to come up with a way on how we want to organize. And we thought like it would be easier for us to organize when we are in a space that is closer amongst us. So we in 2010 World AIDS Day on Fast, we decided to open up an organization called 3W. 3W then became the only organization for the women in Western Kenya. And then right thereafter, we also formed Nyawek. Then Nyawek became an umbrella that every other group would come and join and share. So we started slowly by slowly. We have other people who also in the movement very actively, like Rena, who are not actively in the movement today. So we decided to form an organizing that would be able to support us. And even thereafter, we still met at my space because that was the only space we had then. And the movement picked up from there, if I can say that. And slowly by slowly, people started looking. We started organizing for funding, writing proposals, and thereafter, we started getting some funding, especially from Uhai, to enable us to organize as Western Kenya's bloc.
Oh, that is super. That is super. The history there is intense, and of course, it streams down to years back in 2007, when some of us were still not even actively into organizing, not even out ourselves. So that's a bit interesting to just understand from you, Paul, and we appreciate the sacrifices that you made so far, that you went through. But the other question is, are we there yet? Are we there yet? Do we still have a journey to travel?
The journey, by the way, the journey that we have had from then has been not easy. Even with the donor coming in to support, it has never been an easy job because the struggles are still the same. They're still there. And when you look at Western Kenya, like Kisumu is a bit better. If I can talk about Kisumu as a region, is a bit better. But when you look at the larger Western Kenya, we are still very, very far from achieving what we purposed to achieve when we started the journey. So, and when, for example, now you look at Western Kenya, where I'm situated, the Vihiga Kakamega area, you realize that the journey that we had in 2010 when we were starting our journey then in Kisumu is where Kakamega and Vihiga are right now. So this is a space where people are being beaten up by police. Like yesterday, there was an issue about some young lesbians they were arrested by police and they were being beaten, and they were asked to give pictures about other people. And even as leaders, sometimes it makes us worry because you don't know when someone is going to come to you to ask you, like, oh, you're the ones who are recruiting these young girls. And I look back and I wonder where the imbalance about our journey is, because when you look at Kisumu, even Kisumu is not as where we hoped we could be. Even Kisumu, we have a long journey that we still walk, but other places are more worse than others. Like in the rural organizing, my friend, the place is very toxic. One, it's a very fearful, and people are not as free to express themselves, and people are we're always on our back watching over each other because you don't know what's going to happen next. And then given the fact that this is an area where religion takes forefront, it's like religion is the deciding point for a lot of activities for us. So it's a long journey, it's not balanced yet. So in terms of where we are at, we are still very, very, very far from reaching where we intend to see even some progress happening that we can rejoice about.
We are just cultivating hope that with the new organizing and the new energy that comes with the new organizing, for example, like Talanta Africa, that will push the journey a bit, and at least we'll achieve some milestones in reference to organizing. I want to push this to Dayo. We do understand that Kenya is still very fragile in terms of gender equality, and even looking at the debates that are taking place at the national parliament, the National Assembly, and I'm just relating it to now the struggles. How much more does this status quo weigh on the LBQ like women's? Yeah.
Thank you for that, Stephen. Maybe even just before I get into the gender equality discussion, I would just like to say a big thank you to the organizing that Kinapola started. You know, it's so, like, I don't know how to explain it, because personally, if you could have asked me in 2017, then when I was getting into the movement, I could have swore that I was the only queer woman and my partner that I knew by then, you know, because there was no you know, this rapid conversations that we're having today. And we're having this conversation today because of the movements that Kinapola started way back. So it has given us an opportunity, and we are grateful for that. And like you're saying, we're hoping that new organizing that are coming up are then able to also add into these conversations. And as much as we are not there yet, then it's a vision we're seeing. It's a utopia that we are hopeful we'll get there. But anyway, coming back to gender equality, wow, this is one thing it is hard. You see, as a queer woman, you are fighting two levels of discrimination. First, the fact that you're a woman. Secondly, the fact that you are a queer woman, a lesbian woman, and you find that it's the 21st century, but we're still fighting for the rights that are in mandates. You know, the UDHR, the CEDAW, that are still have these rights there. But women are still fighting for equal rights when it comes to income generation, when it comes to health issues, when it comes to sexual harassment. So can you imagine, as a woman, you have to fight for all these discussions going on. You have to fight for employment. You have to fight for your wage gap when it comes to men. So being a lesbian woman, that means you're a minority woman within a minority space. So that means there are two levels of discriminations that you have to fight. You're fighting for your space as a woman. I don't know, for lack of a better word, would I say a general woman or something of the sort. Then within this general woman cover, you are a lesbian woman that still finds challenges when it comes to accessing health, because then the health workers is not educated enough or sensitized enough to know your needs as a lesbian person. You still fight for equal opportunities when it comes to employment, because then you go to an employer and the employer is questioning even your ability to work because of a simple thing as your sexual orientation. So then it leaves you with a debate, what next? Because then I am fighting to be who I am and still be able to, you know, achieve what I can achieve as a lesbian woman or as a bi woman or as a queer woman. But then someone somewhere is still seated and still questioning even the fact that I'm just not even a lesbian, but I'm a woman. So I don't know whether you're seeing those two levels of discrimination that then the lesbian people, the bisexual people, the queer people have to fight for, right? Steve.
I'm actually getting that bit, and just to expound a bit also in terms to the conversation that you just brought up, is the question of also workplace policy, and we've understood that there are extreme levels of sexual and gender-based violence that is perpetrated within the workplace space. How does it relate to LBQ women within a workplace setting? Dio. Oh, Dio, if you could hear me, we're just putting a rejoinder to the question, to the conversation that you're just having, and just for purposes of clarity, is we know that workplace has always been a place as well where SGBV has always been perpetrated, and looking at the Sexual Offences Act of 2006 and what it speaks to also workplace policy as well. How does it relate to LBQ women within a workplace setting?
So we appreciate the fact that different workplaces have different policies when it comes to their employers. We have heard of workplaces that then even restrict their employers, the employees on, you know, on their dressing code, simple things like that. And you find, and this is especially tough for masculine representing LBQ persons, yeah? because then again, you want to go to work and you're dressed in a certain way. If I'm comfortable wearing trousers, why then would I go to work and I see a policy saying you cannot wear trousers in this space? Because I'm thinking to myself, it's not the trouser that is going to do that work if I'm qualified for this work. So whether I come with a trouser or whether I come wearing a skirt, so long as it is appropriate within that space, then I should be able to be actually given a conducive environment to execute that work. So we find that there are policies that still hinder one to, to express themselves as who they are. And mine, I still say that then the masculine representing people find it hard, because then it comes to dressing, it comes to issues of, it could be, in some places, it could be as simple as the comments that people throw to you. It could be as simple as, uko hapa unajifanya kama mwanaume unataka kuwa kama sisi. You see, that is harassment in its own way. So there's those comments that people throw, there are those policies that then hinder who you are, and those sort of things.
There is a daring need to remove caveats to dressing and caveats to a social life, because caveats come with biases, and we are working so hard to remove those biases. Perhaps if there's a panelist who want to put a rejoinder to this conversation around inequalities, Paula, you'll have something to drop in.
Yes, Steve. I cannot miss something to drop in, because
Yeah, sure.
I have actually fallen a victim to that. There's a place I was doing some work together with in a religious space, and when I went there, one of their needs was they had a poster on the wall that talks about dressing, how you're supposed to dress from Monday to Thursday, and then a little bit relaxed on Friday. And then I was coming from a space where in the LGBT community, where I dress decently, but a dress of my own choice. So, and I assumed that I had not seen that that poster on the wall. So when I got in for the first week, they looked at me and they're not saying anything. Then the next week, someone actually pointed the poster on Monday after the morning devotion. Then I was like, I feel it's my right for me to dress the way I'm dressing, and I feel this is decent. And this one is a discrimination one, because they expect a woman not to dress in trousers, especially jeans, coming to work on Monday. And number two, somehow they got to know about my sexuality. Then it became also another big challenge until now, because the contract that I got was our UMOC, that is Ujami Moja, together with this Christian organizing, to work for children on children's rights. So they went ahead and said that this one is going to molest children, you know. So yeah, so it became a very tough thing, and I realized that even as much as we are where we are now in the country with human rights, and people have those policies that talk about human rights and the rest, but in reality, we are still very far from achieving what we feel is actually human rights, because I've now been denied my right to dress. Then they are seeing like a woman is not supposed to dress in trousers and in a certain way. And then number three, now they got wind about my sexuality, and now they want to use that, one, to deny me the opportunity to continue doing this work, and two, to accuse me of being a person of immoral character. So you find that even as I was saying, talking about discrimination, it even goes wider than the fact that, one, that you're a woman, two, now there's a name that is slapped on you again to feel like you are an immoral person in the society. And then three, they even had no proof about my sexuality, because I told no one, but because of my dressing, they added 1 and 3. And then at that time, I had a rainbow band in my hand, and someone knew about the rainbow band. So I think that is how now they were kind of confirming that this is happening. And the saddest thing that is that the people who started this conversation were actually women. So I must speak Dio's language to confirm that yes, this discrimination is on the highest level than you can even ever imagine, even in Christian spaces where you feel that Christ died for all of us, and according to the Bible, we are all equal in the eyes of God. Steve.
Yeah, thank you for that rejoinder, Paula. Speaking to the fact that also there's those numbers of outing where colleagues can also out you because you're just having a wristband and somebody knows what a rainbow wristband means, and then now outing you to the entire workmanship within the space. Mauricio would like to put a rejoinder around not only an official setting, but what about, because you've been a businessman before, well, how has it spoken to your realities? Yes, Mauricio.
Okay, thank you so much, Stevie. And I thank Dio for a nice conversation, and your points. They're so important to all of us. So I just wanted to add a little bit of my point in terms of hustlers, because if we talk about a workplace, also need to look beyond the office. We have people that do business on the street. We have people that are hawking. We have sex workers. Because if you look at these people, also they face a lot of stigma and discrimination. Just imagine an LGBT person, maybe a masculine presenting a female body, doing sex work, or a masculine presenting person doing business in the street of Kisumu. Let's just mention the street of Kisumu. You know, the kind of stigma and discrimination they normally go through is even double. So also we need to see how best we can help the people that are doing businesses, because we find that most of the LGBT persons are jobless. High percentage are jobless, not because they didn't go to school, but because the space doesn't favor them. There is stigma and discrimination. There's a lot of violence and abuse out here because of just someone's sexual orientation and gender identity. So we need to also speak about this kind of issues so that you can see how best we can also help people that are doing businesses, people who are walking on the street, maybe transgender persons that are doing sex work at night. We need to see what best can we do to help them in terms of their maybe safety and security, and also mental health and well-being. Yeah.
Yeah, because not everybody is in formal employment. Just to give an example of what's the name? Stephen Odipo of I don't give up about it, yeah. And and though Steve was doing kazi yake, I don't know pronouns zake, but I don't know whether is queer or is a cross-dresser. I don't know, but the most of importance is security as a person within an informal business setup, and how then protection and also limitations take center stage in terms of his trade. Thank you very much for that kind of conversation, Mauricio, Dio, and Paula. Just to jump a bit to Fred, and just to ask, Fred, for a long time, organizing has been led by GBMSM, and I don't know what your take is in terms of, does this give us a leverage as a GBMSM community, because we do understand that currently there's been specification in terms of organizing. We're having the ITGNC organizing, we're having the LBQ organizing, then you have the GBMSM organizing. So but when at the start of organizing, it was mostly GBMSM led. So did this by any chance give us a leverage? Are we to an advantage? Please proceed.
Yeah, thank you, Steve, for that. Personally, from my end, I think yes, it gives, and I'll break my issues into 4 points. The first one, there's a lot of the LGBT persons are stigmatized a lot in our country, based on maybe our cultural beliefs, our background, so you're coming from, issues to do with the information that people have in the society. So as much as these people are stigmatized and maybe are discriminated, coming up of these GBMSM organizations that we were talking about here, there's a lot of sensitization that is happening in the community through this kind of organizations that now we have. Now, through that, we are able to realize that there are certain international days for the LGBT persons in the society that is celebrated without guys hiding. For instance, the Idaho for the MSM community. Now, during such forums, at least there's a voice that is heard. Now, provision of space through a government that is NASCOP and MOH, the Kenya. Now, because of the voices of these organizations that you're talking about, we are able to get DICES, drop-in center, where we now integrate with our public healthcare facilities. Now, in such spaces, we are able to understand or know, even if someone was not from the LGBT community, then with the moment you hear issues to do with DICES, you realize that that one is a setup for a specific community going there. So whether you like it or not, you need to listen to them. So at such points, their voices are heard in such kind of forums. Then we have representations in both county and international forums where we are represented by some of these organizations that you're talking about. Remember, when they go to these forums, they talk about the LGBT persons, issues to do with their rights, their spaces, and the identity. So from my end, yes, I think it's giving us or leading us somewhere, Steve.
So in regards to leverage, I don't know what LBQ organizing and the trans organizing here will say, because the specification came in largely because to some extent there was a feeling that LBQ can organize on them on their own, and ITGC can organize on their own. I don't know if there's a rejoinder to it from either Dio or Chibo or from Paula. If there's none, then perhaps Dio, you good?
Yeah, maybe just to mention, I think it is important for strategic partnerships, even within the LBQ umbrella as well. I mean, the GBSM, they have done quite a number of things, researches, they've done studies, and we talk about leaving no one behind. So it could be a plea to the the GBSM movement. As you're doing research for the gay people, as you're doing research for the MSMs, how about you invite LBQ into these researches? Because at the end of the day, if we want organizing, even if we want policies to come up with policies and whatnot, the government, first thing they will ask for is data. But how are we getting this data if we do not have the numbers, we do not have the studies that say the LBQ persons actually need the services? So I think because the strides that the GBSM they have made, it's about time we stop working in silos. That GBSM is organizing on its own, it's leaving the trans people behind, it's leaving LBQ behind. How about we all feed into this particular space for everyone? I think that would be something that I would comment on that.
Yeah, and I think it adds into the conversation, building resilience, because if we divide, if we do specification, then we are creating room for polarization, and once you're polarized, then the aspect of common good is compromised, because we'll be speaking different voices while our lived realities are more or less the same. Our struggles are the same. We meet at points of need, at places that really, if we don't speak together, then we're also creating room for opposition to kind of leverage, to take advantage of. So I think that's a very key point in terms of, as much as we do specified organizing in regards to ITGNC, LBQ and GBMSM, but then we also look at it in a broader picture and a broader perspective in terms of lived realities, in terms of leaving no one behind and do no harm. I just want to remind us again that this conversation is also being streamed live. It's being streamed live on Facebook and YouTube. And I'll request our participants to also just be particular as well with their questions. If you direct a question to Dayo or Mauricio or Abayo or Paula or even to me myself, please specify so that it becomes a bit easier. I want to drop a question to Mauricio before we get to the online participants. And I just want to understand from Mauricio, safety and security. Safety and security. We are getting into a very serious period of in our calendar as a country. That is the electioneering period, 2022 general elections. And as a security focal person, how prepared are we? What are we looking at? What are the warning signs in terms of resilience and also in terms of just building adaptivity to aspects of safety and security? Over to you, Mauricio.
Thanks so much, Steve, again for this opportunity. And I want to say that next year will be general election here in Kenya. And as Western Kenya, I think we haven't prepared enough. One, because what Dai has mentioned that we need to include everyone in our spaces. But you find that there is this issue of LBQ organizing, the ITGNC organizing separately, and also you have the GBMSM. And according to Paula's statement when she started this conversation, she said that and when the started this movement back in 2007, she created a house to be a safe space for the LGBT persons because there was much love. There was much love in Western Kenya. We were like one family. All the LGBT persons were being included in all the spaces. And you find that nowadays donor money has really spoiled a lot of things. Nowadays people are working in silos. People are doing their own programming. So we are not prepared in Western Kenya because I've been having conversation with the different leaders and different organizations in terms of if they have funds for safety and security in next year election. But actually there is no organization in Western Kenya that has money. So what can we do? How can we prepare enough for people next year? Because if you look at back in 2017, I personally documented 115 cases of violence as a result of post-election violence. If you look at in 2013 also, there's a lot of cases that were documented. There were 111 cases that were documented, human rights violations for the LGBT persons. But during those days, you were having a network, which is NARWEC, which was responding to these cases of violations by either relocating the survivor or maybe taking them to safe house for a period of time before taking them or relocating them to a new environment. But this can't happen minus funds. We need to sit down as the leaders in Western Kenya regions and even in Kenya. We see how best we can resource mobilize for next year election because it won't be easy. One, there is this issue in court of Ripple 162, of which the world knows about it. Secondly, there is this issue of COVID-19, which has also made our people to be violated. Three, next year will be election. I can detect that many people are going to be violated next year. So we need to sit down, think and rethink on how we can get resources in Western Kenya for us to implement security programs, to us to start sensitization forums for different stakeholders. We need to bring the police on board. We need religious leaders on board. We need even the court users committee. We need the GBVRC centers on the board so that we can see we can see how best we can help our people in terms they have been violated or abused because of their perceived sexual orientation, gender identity, and expression. But for now, we are not totally prepared in Western Kenya region.
Thank you very much, Mauricio, for that. Perhaps before you get a rejoinder, I want to dive a bit into the online participant. And I think there's a question here. The first question is from Masio Dondo. And the question is directed to all the panelists. Has the SDGs been of help to the realization of LGBTI rights, especially in Kenya, especially SDG 5? SDG 5. So who could go for that? Who could go for that? Dayo?
Thank you for that, Stephen. Mercy asante sana kwa the question. It is still a long shot. I mean, we've been talking about gender equality just a few minutes back, and as Paula mentioned, it's still a long shot to go. As much as we have Kenya that is still looking forward to achieving all these goals, and it's not just SDG 5 because we still have say talk about health, talk about gender equality, and for the LGBTIQ rights, stigma and discrimination has still been a big or a huge hindrance to actually realizing some of these goals. And so, it would beg the question, how then do we counter, or rather, how do we then deal with this stigma and discrimination that has seen us not being able to achieve the goals that are put within the SDGs?
All right. Thank you very much, Dayo, for that. And just also a brief rejoinder: SDG 5 has some specific indicators, and of course, during VNR, that is the volunteer review process at the national level. It is actually one of the key SDGs that performed slightly better. But in terms of querying SDGs, it's still a process. And of course, this is something that we have to be deliberate about. And we have to look at how do we get private, public partnerships in regards to really realizing this. Perhaps, Fred, you'll want to put a rejoinder to this question around SDG 5?
Sorry, Steve, you're breaking. I couldn't hear you well.
I'm asking, Mercy's question is around SDG 5, if it has been of help as the SDG 5, as the SDGs been of help to the realization of LGBT rights. You can hear me, Fred?
Yeah,
Especially,
partially.
yeah. Okay. Paula, if you could go. I think Fred has an issue with the audio.
Hello?
Yes, Paula.
Well, Steve, yes, you're breaking a lot. I don't know if it's only me who is having a challenge.
Oh, sorry. I think I should change position.
Thank you so much for that question, Mercy and Dayo, for the input. Yes, as Dayo has said, we're still having a long journey, by the way, with the G5, because the challenges that we have currently are not easy to achieve as easily as people may want it to be, and the process is kind of very slow. So it's a journey that we're still working on, but we have not done much. And I would say the process is not moving as fast as we hoped and we thought it would. And so it's still a journey for us. Yes, it's still a
Thank you very much, Paula, for that. Now, there's also there's also another question from Asante Kwachrading, and the question is to all the panelists: what are the milestones in terms of access to service provision in relation to healthcare and psychotherapy? What are the milestones in terms of access to service provision in relation to healthcare and psychotherapy? And Fred Abayo, you are in service provision. What are the milestones been so far in regards to access to these services?
Thank you, Steve. I think we've achieved a few milestones that we could talk about happily. One, we have drop-in centers where the LGBT community can access services, friendly services. In those facilities, we have staff that are trained in LGBT issues, so they understand. So by so doing, we are working on issues to do with stigma and discrimination. When the LGBT persons visit these facilities, they don't need to hide a lot. They are open because the healthcare providers understand this. Now, the other milestone that we've achieved is in most of those drop-in centers, the few supportive donors that have been engaging or supporting different programs that are supporting the community, the LGBT community, insist that at least a representation of the LGBT person is in those drop-in center, either as a counselor or a health HTS provider, or maybe a receptionist. At least there's that face of the community person in those facilities. That enhances the issue of opening and coming out of the LGBT persons. We've also achieved milestone in the sense that our drop-in centers where we are offering services to the LGBT persons integrated to the public facilities, and these public facilities are run by the government. So then that means that when we cannot offer a service in our drop-in centers, then they can access the same services at public facilities where without stigma and discrimination. And in those facilities, there's something we call CME. The clinicians or healthcare providers are taken through issues to do with LGBT persons, so they would know how to handle them in that. Though it's not, we can't say that it's 100%, but at least it's an achievement, because initially, if you remember when Paula started, when he said how the journey started, it was not easy for an LGBT person to go to a facility and openly talk about issues that affect them. Maybe somebody presents anal warts, and somebody would ask, how then did you get anal warts? Does it mean you're having sex through anus and things like that? So those are some of the issues that we've achieved. Now, we've also achieved the government, which is NASCOP, also supports the LGBT community or individuals in specific trainings that is targeting the LGBT persons. So if I'm a GBMSM, or maybe I'm probably a transgender person, or maybe an MSM person, I'm trained. There's a specific training that I undergo to help us reach out to the LGBT persons in the community. Now, this one is tailored to programs in terms of implementation. Now, it is an issue that if you want to engage, if you're running an LGBT program, it's important that you engage them in the community in terms of issues of giving mobilization and even giving healthcare information in the community. So I think to some extent, those are some of a few milestones that we've achieved, and we're still going on with the issues of working towards being at 100%. Because now at least this issue with stigma and discrimination is being worked on. Referral networks is also being worked on. We can work closely with the local implementers and the government facilities in terms of service provision. There's also issue of mental health counseling that nowadays programs are being advised, especially the ones that are targeting the LGBT persons, that there's need to have a mental health counselor in those facilities, because the LGBT person go through a lot of mental issues. They undergo a lot of mental health breakdowns, issues to coming out, just expressing yourself. Paula just shared how he was judged when he went to a place. So there's a way that the community perceives or wants you to be, and there's a way that you want to present yourself as an LGBT person. So mental health has also been something that was not in most of the facilities, but now there's a push that we have mental health, and most facilities now have a mental health practitioners in those facilities just to support in terms of well-being of the LGBT persons. Back to Steve.
Thank you very much, Fred. You speak with passion when it comes to healthcare, because you're a service provider. we appreciate you. We appreciate you. Perhaps to just allow Jayo a minute to also just put a rejoinder through.
So when it comes to healthcare provision, I think the government has tried working around that, because then we have even policy guidelines for the transgender persons. We have policy guidelines for the MSMs and even sex workers. So that is a milestone. I mean, having policy guidelines in place. So the question is the implementation. Are the healthcare facilities actually following those guidelines that then have been put in place? And when it comes to implementation, the government also, the conversation that Fred has also brought up around integration, that dices that serve the LBQ then are integrated within public health facilities. That's a very good thing if you tell me, but what do we do further than that, just integrating? If I take a dice and I take it to a public health facility, are the queer people going to go to these dices? So as much as the government is trying, I mean, putting the policies in place, talking about integration, what further can be done? Tunaweza fanya nini zaidi ya hiyo? Because then we can integrate all we want. We can put the dices in public health facilities. Then what? So as much as there's been progress, there's still question, and we can still poke holes that policy guidelines is good, but are these things being implemented when it go to the ground? So that would be another question that we still need to ask ourselves, that yes, the government is having all these milestones, putting policies in place, but then what? Are they being implemented? So that's a question that even as audiences and as people in the panel, we need to still ask ourselves such questions. So yeah.
Yeah. Thank you for that rejoinder. It's not an A1 because we still have a journey to travel in terms of really looking at reintegration. How do we frame reintegration? Does it really mean just putting a dice within a public health facility? And a queer person, for example, a bi person like me, how comfortable will I be to walk into that specific facility if I cannot walk to, let's say, Moi teaching and referral in any day, and then you put a dice inside that? How free will I be to walk into Moi teaching and referral now because of the dice? There's two questions. There are those two questions that we really need to still ask, and also the aspect of those guidelines, the implementation aspect of it. Thank you very much for bringing that up, Dio. Thank you very much. Perhaps to just hear from Paula and the rural perspective. Yes.
Hello.
Yes, Paula, we can get you clearly. Seems like your internet has issues, Paula. Perhaps we could pick Fred for a minute to just talk about the DICE component and also the guidelines.
Hello.
Thank you, Steve. I agree with what Dio's concerns about integration that is happening and the implementation part. But one thing we need to understand and know is at least there's some step that is being done. So we need to move, like, when a baby is born, you don't just rush Dio like from this point to this point. So there's a time when we didn't have facilities, or maybe you couldn't go to the facility and maybe present as an LGBT person. But at the moment, provision, because of the conversation that was ongoing, we had DICEs now brought on board. And then there's that bit that we thought of, okay, most programs are supported by the NGOs. They depend on donor funding, that is. So maybe if the funding is cut, sustaining of the healthcare provision might be a challenge. That's why we thought of, again, integrating the DICEs with the public facilities. Now, I know it's something that might not pick up like immediately, but there's a step that has been made. So when it comes to getting to the rural setup, one, we need to understand that we've had issues with the knowledge gap, especially in the rural setup. The way an LGBT person would present in Kisumu is very different with the way an LGBT person would present in maybe Chemelil or Muhoroni. So there's that knowledge gap, and then access to information and availability of such kind of program. So we believe and hope that in the long term, because we have LGBT persons all over, the diocese would spread in those in different areas. So the other thing and how we can sustain this, the Ochieng's concerns about the diocese in the rural setup is sensitization. Sensitization to the healthcare providers in those particular areas, so that they understand the LGBT persons. So regardless of DICE being there, or being there or not, then service provision needs to be provided and go ahead. Now, Dao talked about something to do with the guidelines. I must say that I'm glad I'm one of those people who have been participating in coming up with the guidelines. I remember when we were working on the MSM guideline, the transgender, that one. I remember there was an issue where transgender persons were told that their guideline cannot be called guideline, and it will be called guidance. And there were so many issues that tailored towards that. Now, so as much as these guidelines have been developed, a guideline is there to guide programmers and maybe implementers on areas they need to work around. But it does not mean that if we have a guideline, we cannot think beyond that. So, well, it is true we have guidelines and guidance, the way Dio mentioned. But again, as LGBT persons, we need to also think around, or maybe outside the box, about these guidelines on how the implementation can be done. Issue of implementation, now that one I don't want to get into, because we have different people doing their implementation differently. So that might be a discussion for another day. Steve, back to you.
Thank you very much, Fred. Perhaps now we could get from Paula to just speak about the rural perspective of the wins, the milestones that has been realized in healthcare settings and also in the psychotherapy settings. Over to you, Paula. Paula, you're on mute. Thank you.
Sorry about that. So thank you so much, Steve, and thank you to the panelists who have shared about policies. But again, yes, as Steve is saying, the rural setup is so left behind, actually. And there is so much that is still not happening here in terms of healthcare facilities for LGBTI people. And it's a slow process given the community that is here. It's a slow process, though it has already started. Talking to the health facilities, especially the Kakamega General, and also for Vihiga County, it's pretty slow, I can say. And it's a process that will take time. And yes, we are doing a lot of sensitization on that. And remember, most of the organizings that we have in Kakamega and Vihiga, they are very young. And in terms of visibility, and people are still shy about it. So I guess we could ask ourselves, what can Kisumu, that has done so much? I know that Fred, you've done so much with health facilities and dices, and I know Mego is also there, and I know that Anzamapema is also there. But now, what can you do to support us here in the rural organizing to ensure that at least we start some baby steps to ensure that we have some dices that can support, and also that's for now, because looking at it, I don't see how we can right now start integrating those services within any health facility in this area, because one, they still have no knowledge about so much, or maybe if they have, no one has actually gone to them courageously and spoken to them about the needs of the LGBTI people. So for us, it's a long process, but again, I would ask then the Kisumu team that already has a process that is well established to reach out to us here and help us to walk the journey together to enable the LGBTI people who are here to get services that they need from the health facilities. And if it's not, then to see a way that they can support the community to be able to achieve equal health. Steve.
Okay, thank you very much for the rejoinder, Paula. I just want to take one last question from the
Maybe I
participant.
can add something.
Okay, Ucheng, please proceed.
Okay, thanks so much again, Steve. I just want to share about what Fred has just shared with us about the dices. We need to look at if these dices are accommodative to all people, that's LBQT or the female bodies, because we normally find that these dices are for the key population. That means that it accommodates the GBMSM and maybe the transgender people, transgender population. So we need to look at if you're having these dices, do they know the needs of the LBQ persons? Do they know the needs of the ITGNC persons? Because what are they doing? Is it only access to HIV care services, or is there access to mental health issues? Is there access to gender affirming services for the transgender persons? Is there access to sexual reproductive health and rights for the key population? So you need to look at what these dices are doing for us now to start referring our people, because you can't refer your person or your members if the dice is not okay for them. And apart from that, also, we don't have dice in rural areas. Are we? We don't have dices. So also we need to get in touch with the rural organizations so that we can see how best they can work with the dices that are based within the urban settings. Because you can't just assume that LGBTIs are in towns. They're also in rural areas, and there's so many rural areas. So we need to include everyone in our spaces, whether they're coming from rural areas, whether they're coming from urban settings, they are coming, all persons, we need to include them. So we need to see how best we can include. My issue is only the LBQT, all the female bodies, you see, because they're not considered as key population. Yet they also get affected with HIV and AIDS. They also get STIs. We also been affected by other STDs. So we need to see how best we can help the female body, people that were assigned female at birth, in terms of access to healthcare services within this nation. Back to you, Steve.
Thank you very much, Mauricio, for the additions to the conversation. I just wanted to take another question before we proceed with the panel session, and this question has been directed directly to Dio by Dagi Owila. And Dagi asks, do you think scramble for the same donors for funding has contributed to the inter-organization fight, and as such widening the bridge between different organizing within Western Kenya, GBMSM, sex workers, LBQ, trans, and intersect, etc.? And if so, what can cure this? And I want to tweak this to a certain comment that was made by Hilary Onea, where it was saying that polarization in terms, not even polarization, but specification in terms of organizing has led to now GBMSM, ITGNC, and LBQ. So right now there's also an organizing that is specific to bis. Bisexuals are also now organizing. Is there a correlation? Please proceed, Dayo.
This has been a conversation that everyone has, albeit in low tones. But I usually say, or as a friend of mine usually says, like, there's enough sun for everyone. The sun shines for everyone. So this notion that if I'm programming within a certain area, say if I'm programming in Western Kenya and I have like a health program, the notion that someone else is also programming around the same issues, so it looks like a fight, is something that should not even be there. Because I mean, if like, it's as simple as that. The sun shines for everyone. Your programming might not be the same programming as I am doing. So if I'm going to look for a donor fund to put funds in a certain activity that I'm doing, then you also believe in yourself and believe in the program that you're doing, that it's still going to, to find the same, to find the same funds that you're looking for. So the notion that I I don't know how to put it. The notion that I cannot work with you because you're doing the same programs as I'm doing is something that we need to get out, to get out, because say Talanta Africa is organizing around health. You're doing different activities. And then there's Dio that is also programming around health. I might be doing the different activities. So if I approach a donor and I have my own proposal or my own concept and tell them this is the way I want to do my work, and that is the way you want to do your work, what is so hard there? Because at the end of the day, the queer people, one person working on queer issues is not enough. We'll need Talanta Africa to still work on those issues. We still want Transibio to work on those issues. We want Kina Paula to work on those issues. So saying that we are scrambling for donor funds is not an argument that we need to even bring, because your work enough is not enough to liberate the queer persons as much as you're doing health programming and I'm doing health programming. So yeah, I think the key is just to work together. So whether you're doing health programming, let me do my health programming as well, because at the end of the day, we still want to, to create a conducive environment for these queer persons.
Okay, thank you very much, Dio. Just talking about this question has made me think about so many things, because the movement has been there, and of course, Paula, you've been in the movement. Has this been a contribution to the issues you're seeing currently? Please proceed.
Well, thank you, Steve and Dio, and thank you, Dagi, for asking this. Yes, I'm actually smiling because I'm privileged to look back and to look at the present and look at tomorrow and actually wonder. But all said and done, there's been a great challenge, and of course, like Dio says, a lot of talks under the table. And for me, I can say that donor funding has brought a lot of challenges, I must say. As much as donor funding is good, but we have experienced a lot of challenges when now people stopped looking at the vision for which people had. And now everybody's thinking about, if so-and-so was not doing this, then maybe this would have been my funding. And like Mauricio said some time back there, before we were all united and doing things together. So I wake up one morning and there is GB, MSM, and I'm wondering, what is that? And again, I wake up tomorrow and there is TI. I wake up tomorrow again, there is I don't know what. Now there's, of course, another one for the bias. And I'm wondering, what happened to the unity that we used to have? Where did we go wrong? As much as I can say, it is, as much as we all say that there is nothing for us without us, yes. There's nothing for the LBQs without them. There's nothing for the TI without them, and all those. But I think somewhere along the line, I must say, donor funding brought a lot of unity as much as a lot of division, and people started having the notion of that notion that this person should let me do this because I'm the one who's doing health. But when you look at what is happening around, people are doing health around different things, like Dale has said. I may be doing health and I'm doing sensitization. I may be doing health and I'm doing treatment. I may be doing health and maybe doing it wholesomely. But I will say two things. Yes, the donor funding has brought a lot of confusion, and it has killed that unity that we used to have, and it has brought a lot of the small things. But again, donor funding is still good because it enables us also to still focus on something that you think you are powerful at doing, and doing it better because you're focusing on that thing. So that is my contribution, Steve.
Oh, thank you, Paula. Thank you, Dio. The idea is, and just like Dio had placed it, we are doing small things that together contribute to the impact. Like, we cannot say that we, like, for example, Talanta Africa will do everything. Like, you literally can't. You literally can't. And just to peg it in, even in regards to, let's say, climate change. How many people are doing climate change programming? And it's small contributions from different programmers that is translating to the change that we really want to see. So again, the sun shines for everyone, just like that.
Yes.
Placed it. Yeah.
Yes.
There is no donor for someone. and there is no fund for someone. There's no donor that comes and say that this money, I'm placing a call, but it belongs to Paula. No, nobody does that. It's a competitive process. It's an innovation. The new ideas, the firsts, is what wins. Abai, would you want to put something to this?
When did you call me?
Yes, I did. Do you want to put something to us across to this conversation?
What I would say, I would buy what you're saying and Dio. Actually, and that's where the problem starts. We don't have a donor that should support this particular like community and that. And actually, I believe in competition. Healthy competition is good. If maybe Dio works in a program where they need something that I'm not implementing, and they have opportunity to be funded with the same donor that is funding me to do certain things, then fine. We cannot do all those activities. And I will relate it with what the mainstream organizations that are reaching out to the LGBT persons and the LGBT person-led organizations that we have currently. That we need to understand that we are here to serve the community. We need to ensure that they get services regardless of the funding donor or the program that is running. And I think if we get out of that narrative of who funds who, we are fighting for the same donors, this is a mainstream organization. Remember, these people are targeting the same community persons that we believe and claim that are at heart. So I 100% support what Steve and Dio are saying about the donor and donor funding and issues like that. There was an issue that Mauricio talked about, integration of services in our drop-in center and healthcare service provision. Now, I think that's something that needs to also be handled and tackled keenly. Currently, to be honest, the service provision that we have in our drop-in centers are basically geared towards HIV. And Steve, that is why we still say that we do not have enough space to talk about LGBT issues. Because one, if I want to implement anything to do with LGBT person, I'll be told to tailor it alongside HIV, STI, for me to maybe get a platform to be heard, which is very difficult. At times, I would just want to share about my sexuality or maybe how I identify. How is that tailored with HIV? So I think those are some of the issues that still hinder our the LGBT access to service or healthcare provision. So it is true what Mauricio is saying is a concern, and we know it's something that is happening. Most of the dioceses cannot provide, it's very expensive to maintain mental health counseling in those facilities. Even in the public facilities, there's issue of provision of maybe hormonal therapies in the drop-in centers. That is still very expensive. So as we progress, we should start thinking outside the box and know how we could also support in terms of service provision. He also talked about how sure are we that these people are safe, because the drop-in center, actually the concept was about reaching out to the female sex workers, men having sex with men, and probably now transgender persons are incorporated. But how prepared were people? How are we prepared to accommodate the transgender person? Remember, this is somebody that's struggling with the identity. So that is the conversation that I think as implementers or maybe programmers, we should start talking about. But currently, it is true there's gap in terms of DICE and service provision in those facilities. For instance, I work in a program where we are reaching out to the transgender persons, and we give them what NASCOP calls the basic HIV treatment, HTS counseling, art, provision, PrEP and PEP, condom use. And if we go further, we do mental health counseling. And we are lucky that we have a legal person in our program, so we extend it with giving service provision when it comes to violence and things like that. But what the transgender person call as basic, we cannot provide. And that is the truth. So there's a gap on that. Back to you, Steve.
Okay, thank you very much. a bio. So at this point, I think we'll now get back to the panel, and then I'll get back to the participants later. Participants, kindly, I can see you're super hyped on the chat box. I mean, on the on Facebook. We'll get back to the questions. We'll also get back to the comments. Allow me just to get back to the panel so that we can finalize some few questions. At this point, I want to just move straight to Dio, and I want to ask Dio this concept around allyship, around ally building, around having friends within the queer organizing. What are the pros and cons? What are we looking at? What is the insecurity? What is the security? Over to you, Dio.
One, I would say allyship for me, it's simple as, having genuine concerns for the community. So having genuine concerns then would mean that you're having honest conversations with yourself and even with other people, that you are advocating for equal rights for these people, that you're speaking with, you're keeping yourself informed, and you're creating safe spaces and educating others. A lot of times for us queer people, people that we approach or people that want to be our allies then end the allyship in our space. If we are, for example, locked up in a room, the allyship will be within the room, but soon as you step up kwa mlango, then the allyship ends with that. For me, I ask myself, if you cannot be a loud ally, if you cannot openly, advocate for my rights or in spaces that I'm not there, then what is the need for calling yourself an ally to me if you're not genuine about it? You see, so there are the opportunities or the advantages that come with this, that if it's genuine, then you're able to advocate for me in spaces that I'm not there. If it's genuine, then you're able to also ensure that in your spaces of work or whichever places, there are policies that are policies of equality and non-discrimination. If it's genuine, then it means that you're educating others that are not in my space about LGBTIQ. You're keeping yourself informed. The disadvantages then of allyship for me would then be, if it is not genuine, what information are you giving out there? Are you just speaking positively when we are together, but when we're out there, because mi hata hapo naendanga tu nikae tu, lakini hiyo kitu si support and you forgive me for speaking Kiswahili and also English, because I'm trying to
No, it's
changanyisha.
okay. It's okay.
Yeah, so for me it's as simple as that the disadvantages would come if this allyship is not genuine. Then what information are you putting out there when I'm not there? Are you making sure that even in your space there are policies that then do not allow for discrimination? So it's the advantages would be, if the allyship is genuine, then the conversations are honest, the conversations advocate for my rights. If it is not genuine, then the opposite is also true. Because if it's not genuine, then you're doing more harm to me than building what I'm trying to organize around as a queer person. So mine would be as simple as that.
Yeah, because in most instances we get allies who, when they're asked, we've been seeing you with Steve for quite some time. Are you gay? And then they're like, no, I just work with them. I don't know them. I just work with them. You see, and we also have allies within our workstations who, when they're outside there, then they're like, oh, you're working with the gay organization. Then they're like, no. I just work with them. I just work with them. You see, so that kind of stop. I just work with them really insinuates something totally different. I don't know what to think about this, Paula. Since organizing in 2007 to date, what has allyship been like? How does it look like?
Well, just like Dio says, if it is genuine, then the conversations are different. But from my experience that I've had, I've worked with. Can you hear me?
Yes. We can get you clearly.
Yes, I've worked with allies who, some of them were there because they know they will leave that place with some stipends. Some of them have been there who are truly and actively passionate about the LGBTI people. That one is for sure. And even now, we still have a number of them who are passionate about LGBTI people because of the sensitization that has been done to and with them. So yes, in the journey, we have had people who are, like you say, Steve, they will chuja you at the point when they feel like they're going to be attached to you because of the work you do or because of who you are, and at that point they will run away. Yes, but we have some who have actually stood firm and said, yes, these people are doing a good job, and we should support them, and we are going to work together with them to ensure that the purpose for which they're here is achieved. So it's been about for now, I can say, for the people that I'm directly working with, we have people who are 60% very, very cooperative, and they're good allies. And 40%, sometimes you wonder whether is it about the fact that atapata pesa ya unga to go back home with in the evening, or are they actually truly interested in this? One time in a religious gathering where I was sitting, a religious leader from Kisumu actually said, he was laughing about the fact that these people sit in a group thinking that we are going to preach this at the pulpit. So at that point, someone overheard, and the person was asking, also was a reverend, and was asking him, then why are you here? You know, and such conversation is good when now you can get somebody else who can actually ask a fellow colleague, why are you here if you don't believe in the purpose for which you're invited? So yes, we have 60% allies that are actually good. They are good allies. Then we have some who are there for other reasons. Either they want to find out what's happening, or they're there, like I said, maybe for stipends or maybe for another reason. I don't know, but an ally is supposed to be someone who is with you, but some of them are, like I said, you didn't define exactly why they want to work with you.
Oh, all right. Thank you very much, Paula. Looking at it from the healthcare perspective, and just over to Abayo, health comes with a lot of confidentiality. Abayo, you seem to be a little bit aggressive at the background.
It's okay, Steve. I'm sorry about that.
No, it's all right. Healthcare comes with a lot of confidentiality, and how would you look at allyship within the healthcare space? Is it working? Is it not working? Also within the peer-to-peer service provision, the peer education framework. Over to your bio.
Thank you, Steve, for that. I'll go with what Paula said. Issues with allies and confidentiality. Currently, even some of the peers that we are reaching out to, the LGBT peers that we're reaching out to, are not comfortable to report to their own peer educators in the community. So that means there's that gap of confidentiality, and even to the service providers, just as Dio said, and you also commented on same. Somebody would come to work in an organization because they want to earn money, but they don't have the LGBT person at heart. We also have those who would pretend that they're allies to the LGBT person, but when they are met outside here, because somebody will say, okay, I'll use my own example. Most people, if I meet new friends, they will tell me that, I thought you are a good person, but kumbe weni mtu najulikana. I mean, if you're working in an organization, you need to be known, because you're targeting the people that you're targeting, you need to communicate to them. So lazima utajulikana. So why would you judge somebody based on penye anafanya and what they do? If I'm an ally to an LGBT person and I'm not LGBT person, it means I need to understand this person. I should empathize with this person and feel what they feel, understand them and take them the way they are. The issue of I was working with Steve and I'm not that. I was just working with them. I'm just a dancer. That is why I'm in that group. Those are the things that are bringing issues, and the confidentiality that you're talking about becomes an issue even into these facilities that you're running. We can get clients, in some of these drop-in centers that are running. And a client will tell you that if so-and-so is around, I'm sorry, I cannot come to the dice. Probably that is also an LGBT person, but because of that confidentiality is lacking. Now, the service providers, at times, not all service providers that we have in our drop-in centers are the LGBT community. So maybe if somebody walks out of the drop-in center, they start discussing about the issue that person presented. How do they feel? To be precise, Steve, I visited one of the facility and I pretended like I'm not a Luo. Then, after the service was given, the healthcare provider called a receptionist person and they started discussing. And you know what they were discussing? They were asking themselves, now, if a gay person is making love to a gay person, how do they mourn? I mean, they're talking like that. The client has not even, the client has not even left. And they're talking like that. So what do you expect? Do you think I would go back there? Automatically, I would break up. I storm and I mean, especially if you are empowered. So the issues of allies, it's something that, to me, it's not really working. It's not working. It only works if somebody has benefits. They want something to benefit. Maybe they want a drink, or maybe they want some favors, or maybe there's something they want. But there are very few LGBT allies that I can talk about that. That's my take. Back to you, Steve.
Oh, thank you very much. Mauricio, will you have a rejoinder to this? Now that trans organizing is also taking a very, very aggressive route in terms of visibility. Mauricio, in terms of allyship or within the trans movement, will you have something to say?
Okay, thank you so much, Okwan. I was keenly listening to Fred's words, and I was just smiling because for the longest time we've seen most of our allies they're there for us because of finances. There is reimbursement. They're sleeping in good hotels. Why am I saying this? We can remember the issue of gays making roads in Kisumu. I think it was back in 2018 when Kisumu was smelling fire. So one of our allies, and I can mention this, was the police commandant in Kisumu. You know what he said in his statement? That I don't know if these organizations exist in Kisumu County, and I have never worked with this kind of people. So I have to do investigation to find out if they're available. Then we are going to arrest all of them. Remember, this is one person who has been strongly supporting us, who has been attending most of our forums and the trainings, who has been championing for the rights of the LGBT in Kisumu County. So we need to look at who are our allies. We need to map out our allies. We see who are there to support us, even if we are at our worst point. Who will be there to support us? A good example, even you can even see the history of the Repeal 162. You see what happened. We need to have allies in Kisumu. There are a number of violations that were happening in Western Kenya region. We could even contact the police officers for them to come to rescue our people. They're not even there for us. They could even switch off their phones. They could say that they're too busy. You see. So we need to see who are our allies. Even if it is only one ally in the whole of Kenya, we need to work close with that person. In case even things are worse on our side, that they're ready to die for us. Not that they're there because there is money that they're receiving at the end of trainings, or maybe they're getting opportunity to travel out of the country. Because even during Narek Network, we were having many religious leaders that were traveling out of the country in conferences, they're attending forums in different regions of the world, and we're happy about it. What about if something has happened in Kisumu County? Will they be there for us? Will they create their churches a safe space for the LGBT persons? Will their homes be a safe space for somebody who's being violated? So if we talk about allies, let's talk about some of the facts about the allies and some of the pros and cons about being an LGBT ally. Not only the positive part of it, but then depending on our benefiting from our activities, maybe money, meetings. Let's also see how best they can come and support the LGBT persons.
Thank you very much, Mauricio. Just you've hinted about the decrim ruling, Repeal 162, and I remember that was the biggest turning point for our allies, because when we needed allies within the chambers, we never had allies in the religious setup, in the business setup, in the legal setup. Like almost all allies turned against us. So it was a turning point for us to really look at our allies, to rethink strategies of engaging our allies, and really how to really map them out, because that's also a very key issue. Mapping out, like literally, how do you map them out? Because if we get it wrong at the mapping out stage, then we get it wrong all through. I want to just dash a question through to Fred Abayo, and the question is, it's been said that we are a Western culture, we are a borrowed culture. Like this narrative, what does it really imply? What is the insinuation behind it? Over to you. Fred? Oh, seems like Fred didn't get me clearly. Fred, are you there? You can hear me?
Steve, I can hear you.
Yes. The question is around us the queer community being a borrowed culture. What does this really mean? And it says that we are funded to be who we are, and we conform to a script that is not us and is not ours because of money. What does this really insinuate? What does this really mean? Because we also need to create clarity of purpose. Please proceed, Abai.
Yeah, Steve, that's very true. It's true. People believe that the LGBT persons are from other continent, or maybe the world. Now, when you talk about a queer person, now this is one that does not anyone who is no non-cisgender or heterosexual to start with. Now, in African context, we believe that we don't have such people. Why? And I will break it to a specific points. One, there's a lot of stigma and discrimination in our society where we are coming from. Now, the stigma could be within the community members, that is the LGBT person themselves, and the stigma could also be from the community where you're coming from. Maybe my tribe, what they believe and perceive in terms of that. Now, there's issue of violence. Violence is perpetrated because somebody would know that, would say the same way you're saying that you're trying to be what you're not, or maybe you are looking for funds, or maybe support, or maybe sympathy from somewhere. Now, when this is happening, you undergo a lot of violence. One, there's mental or maybe emotional violence. For instance, if I present as a gay person and then I'm forced to get married to a woman, you see, emotionally I would be affected because I'm being forced to do what somebody feels is right for me to do, and that is not my thing. There are a lot of myths and misconceptions where people are saying that, oh, that is something that is in the Western culture. It can't be in Africa, or maybe you are caste. That's why you are doing such like things. We have rejection. And then the last one is fear of unknown, which Paula was talking about. We don't know what the government or maybe the community, general population would wake up tomorrow and say about LGBT persons. So it comes with a lot of challenges, Steve, and these challenges make the LGBT person or hinder them from accessing healthcare service. It makes them it deprives them from their freedom of maybe movement, or maybe doing other things like any other Kenyan citizen. So I believe in a way we are affected by the fact that people believe that we are trying to be to borrow what we are not in our country, so that maybe we suit something, or maybe attract funding somewhere. And those are my areas where I feel we are strongly affected. There's a lot of stigma and discrimination that affects the LGBT person because nobody wants to understand them. If people stigmatize you, you cannot come out. And that is where the self-stigma comes. there's a lot of violence that happens among them because people feel that that is not the reality. People are pretending. There's blackmail, there's emotional, and then even physical. Somebody maybe wants to beat you because they feel you are presenting what you are not. Then a lot of myths and misconception, rejection that they face, and then fear of the unknown because we do not know what happens. What will happen if politicians go to the parliament and they decide that they are going to pass this kind of bill of motions in the parliament? What happens if maybe the government says that now we don't need LGBT person the way Paula was saying, and then people start looking for these people who are working in LGBT programs as people who are promoting that. So I think that is my take, Steve.
Thank you, Bio. Perhaps to get a rejoinder from Dio.
So yesterday I was following a conversation on Facebook. Yeah, it was a conversation around how apparently the female celebrities are coming out as lesbians. Yeah, so I was following the comments, and you find that a lot of Kenyans actually believe that people that the celebrities are being paid to come out as lesbians, and there's this whole thing of this is a Western culture, hii ni mambo ya wazungu, mbona mnakuwa hivi? And I was seated and wondering. I mean, as a person who identifies as a queer lesbian, there's issues around, like Fred has mentioned, issues around access to health, issues around violence, issues around even being thrown out of your place of where you stay, or even family rejection. And so as I was reading the comments, and I'm like, who would even choose to undergo all these problems when people still believe actually this is a Western culture? Would I just sit down as there and decide I want to be a lesbian, knowing all these problems that come with it? So the notion that this is a borrowed culture or this is a Western culture, I think it's something that even the general population just needs to get it out of their mind, because I don't think anyone would choose to have all these problems. No one would choose not to have a family, or no one would choose to be chased out of their house if it was a choice per se, or if it was it's something they're borrowing from a certain culture, you know. Paula, could you
Thank
add
you.
on
You
to
have
that
taken
as well?
over. Where has Steve disappeared to?
Maybe
Okwen is
network
gone.
issue. Yeah, but you can take over from that.
Yes. There you remind me again, like I said, about when the World Social Forum came to Kenya in 2007. And we were just discovering that there are people who look like us and who feel like us and who are just like us. When we saw people doing the parade on the streets, then everybody was like, really? And that means that everybody in Kenya was holding up, because they didn't know that we have our own just around us, that my neighbor is like me. So when the World Social Forum came is when now people were like, oh, in fact, I can remember someone actually cried and said, oh my God, I thank you that this forum was brought to Kenya at the right time. And even when this forum was coming, we were already here, but we just did not know how to organize, you know. And I thank God for that season, because it made us start an organizing. So that is not to say that that this is a Western thing. This is us, because I'm sure every kind of human being is everywhere in every country and every space. So yes, it is true that this is not, even Fred has said that is not anything that's coming from the West. We are actually the West. If anything, maybe they've borrowed our culture, if I can say that. So yes, we are here, and I'm glad that we are here, and it is our culture. Dio.
That is very true, Paula. I don't know if Ocheng, if you have something to add on to that.
Okay, if you look at the stories of the LGBT persons based on their life experiences, we normally understand that most of them were not recruited to become members of the LGBTI. Somebody as young as the age of 12 years old is already out, maybe as a lesbian person. And from my story, I normally say that I didn't borrow any culture because one, my mother normally says that I was behaving differently at the age of 7 years old, and that is a story that she keeps on sharing all the time. So at 7 years old, during our age, I'm past 30 years old. During our years, there was no access to social media. I was not on Facebook. I was not even going to any social spaces, maybe for the LGBT meetings. I found myself being who I am. So I normally say that nobody borrowed maybe sexual orientation or gender identity. Then if you look at olden days in Africa, a good example, let me just give a good example. In my community in Kisumu, a place called Nyawita, we were having this mother who was called Ondiek. Ondiek was a woman from Asembo, and she married, like, I think she married four women, and nobody even was talking about that kind of issue. They were living happily, so the woman could just go out and maybe just get pregnant outside and bring the kids. And she was having four homes. Two of the homes is in Kondele, and two homes are in Narita. Nobody even mind about them. I think that was back in 1950 something or 1960 something. Those days, who was on social media? Was there existence of Facebook or Twitter or maybe Instagram? So we should stop saying that we adopted this culture from whites. In fact, whites are the people, maybe whites adopted this culture from Africa, because this is what we are and this is who we are. And human beings will never exist without LGBT persons, because they're also part of the human beings. We are human beings and we are valid. So no culture that was borrowed from the whites. We were born this way and we live happily as who we are.
That is the point you always say, we live happily ever after. even with the retrogressive narratives around us as queer community, but we exist, we are real, we are valid.
And one,
Yes, yes.
and again, another thing, we can't say that we borrowed this culture, because if you look at the kind of issues the LGBT persons are facing in Kenya and across the world, many people are being slaughtered, many people are being arrested, people are being sexually abused every day. The LGBTQ women are being collectively raped. If we adopted this culture from whites, even if we say that we adopted this culture from white people, we can even stop we can stop being lesbian, we can stop being gays because of the kind of violation we are going through. But despite all these violations and hatred in this community, we still exist. So that means that nobody adopts this kind of culture, and nobody is willing to go through this kind of violence and abuses and hatred and rejection, and even becoming homeless, some even being killed, and still becoming members of the LGBT persons. No, nobody.
Okay, Dayo, I'll give you a second on the same. Please proceed.
But I won't add much. Mauricio, thank you so much for that. But also, like I said, following the conversation on social media yesterday, I usually tell people, it's easy as actually tasking yourself to go and read. Because if you read about African traditions and African cultures, I mean, the transgender persons were people who existed. And when it comes to traditional African values, we preached about love, we preached about support, protection of these particular people, those times. So why can't we carry this culture? Because African culture preaches love, it preaches support, protection. Why do we want again to now, in this time and age and era, start discussing things about the Western culture at it's a borrowed culture? If you read very well and if you do your own research, then you find that these people were people who existed, and that culture by then supported them. It gave them love. It gave them protection as well.
Yeah, I think for a long time we as a community have just built a resilient skin towards these retrogressive narratives. It's so sad that these narratives still lead us to targeted homophobic processes, for example, attacks, and of course, currently the conversion therapy that is the hugest menace in this country. I'll allow Paula a second as well, so that we can get to Mauricio with the next question. Proceed, Paula.
Thank you very much, Steve. Actually, you've mentioned the conversion therapy that I wanted to talk about, and it's a wave that is hitting the country now. I know it was there in the western region for some time. Maybe it's still there in some areas, but now it's important for people to be aware that there is a group of people who are doing the conversion therapy, and it is important for us to even sensitize our members, because it is a situation that can break someone so badly, already on top of the challenges that you're already having, Steve.
Okay, thank you. Just to get to Mauricio, Mauricio, we understand that trans persons have actually been included as a key population group by NASCOP currently, and we just want to understand, is this a win, and what do we expect to see, and what value does it add to access to hormones and the transitional therapy? Over to you, Mauricio.
Okay, thanks so much again, Steve. And I can say that it is a win for the transgender persons. And before I move to my point, I think I need to mention some of the few people that made this happen. Basically, the legal recognition of the transgender person. And this is our lovely Mama Audrey Mbogwa. You know, because of her, she did a lot in this country, and she made sure that transgender persons can now change their documents, that's ID, and transgender person, and also can, uh, can also like get access to hormones because of the kind of advocacy programs she has done in regards to gender farming care services. So we are having the national guideline for for HIV and STI for the transgender persons in Kenya that was developed by the group of transgender individuals and organizations, and also NASCOP. And I can say this is a win because it talks about HIV and AIDS in relations to being a transgender person, the risks, the vulnerabilities, and access to HIV care and services. And also, if you look at this transgender guideline, it talks about stigma and discrimination in access to HIV care services, violence and abuse, documentation around these kind of violations within the transgender spaces. So we can say that, you know, it is a win for us because there is also component of gender farming care services in Kenya, which I can go and access hormones, despite it is being done in public facilities, but under private doctors. But you can say that there is a way because I can access hormones in Kenya. So a lot have been done around the transgender issue. We are one of the key population, apart from the GBMSM, sex workers, people who inject drugs. There is also transgender person that has been included to be part of key population. That means that we can access many government services. We can access HIV care and services within the public facilities. So this is a win. This is a win, but not only for the transgender person, but it is a win for all of us in Kenya and out of Kenya, across the world.
Okay, thank you so much. I think because we are almost running out of time, we can get back to our participants online just to see what questions we have or what rejoinders we have this side. Just a second. Okay. To Paula, there was a question to you, Paula, by Asante Kwachrading. And the question was, what are the limitations and bottlenecks when it comes to media advocacy in terms of creative expressions and electronic communication, and behavior change communication in Kenya, the BCC? I'll repeat the question. What are the limitations and bottlenecks when it comes to media advocacy in terms of creative expressions and electronic communication and behavior change communication? Largely looking at it in the aspects of expression. Over to you, Paula.
Thank you very much, Steve, and thank you very much. Is it Kwach Redding? Huh?
Yes.
For that question, yes. Like we have said through the program, it's we have a lot of limitations, by the way, as now, because as you know, it's not I believe that is asking in terms of the LGBTI community, and I can say it is not a topic that is easy to discuss when you want to talk about that in the media, and that one you can see even from our day-to-day media activities. It's not something that can easily be achieved, is easily achievable as at now, but it's a process that is ongoing. And so the only spaces that we have now are probably the social media activities spaces, like for example the IGs and Facebook, and maybe if we have activities spaces like now what we have now. But I can say we have a lot of limitations in terms of media advocacy, and that is something that probably we need to improve on. Maybe it's because maybe we still have some fears, or maybe that platform is not yet open for us as we would like to. Steve.
Thank you. Fred, I think you can go next because you have a point to put across. Please proceed.
Steve, maybe if I add on what Paula said, from my end, I think the limitations that they would have would be in two aspects. That is the age bracket. If you look at the persons they are targeting with that kind of information, whom are they targeting? And you see, when you're using social media or maybe the media platform, you cannot tell a certain age that now we don't want you to listen or watch. So you don't know who is going to watch this or maybe who is going to listen to this at the time of your advocacy. Then the issue of packaging of the information or message, it could be, there would be a lot of restrictions in packaging of the information to fit a particular a community. So from my end, I think those two can also be added in his point. The issue of age bracket and the packaging of the information that they want to relay. Back to you, Steve.
Thank you, Fred. Dale, do you want to put a rejoinder?
Yeah, sure. Paul has talked about social media, and we see there's been increased reliance, on the internet, especially with COVID-19. When the guidelines came in, you cannot meet at a certain place and all that. So there's been increased reliance on the internet and social media. Also, someone talking about TikTok. So definitely, there's also been increased. I mean, the social media has increased people awareness on different issues, but then a question would come about of asking, is the information on social media apt? Is it not really appropriate, but is there truth in social media? Because again, then it's an open space that people are just discussing their own views, their own minds. So what information is, if I'm in organizing, is the information around social media, is the information going around on social media something that I really want my people to focus on, or are there questions to then the information that they are receiving? So as much as there's increased awareness on the happenings around the society, are they appropriate information? I don't know. Because just as I was saying, the conversation yesterday on social media, when people were talking about these people are coming out as lesbians because they're going to be paid, they're just lesbians for a period of time. When the money is done, then they'll go back to being straight and things of the sort. So yes, there are conversations, but are they true conversations? Is it true, or how do you put it? Steve. Steve.
Steve is hanging.
But Paula, I don't know whether you're getting what I'm trying to say. We are saying
yes. Yes. In fact, you've got me thinking actually. Whether even that social media is meeting the purpose.
Yeah.
For the information that you want out there. You made me. You got me thinking. I was watching. What is her name? Is she called? What's her name? This one who once had her Mercedes knocked down. This lady who's nowadays so much on the social media. What's her name? You guys know her. So I was watching one of her previous interviews with Jalango. You know, Jalango and her is the media thing. And she didn't want to come out straight to say actually what she wants to pass across. And every time Jalango would ask her, like, tell us, is this your girlfriend? You're a member of the LGBT. Do you know she did not respond positively at all or negatively? She just left him hanging there and keep saying that, no, it's not like that. So at the end of the day, when now someone comes to ask you directly, it becomes it becomes so hard sometimes for you just to give out the information that you really had inside and you had the courage to give. But then you are seeing that everybody's watching me, and now who am I giving this message to? And maybe say you don't know why this person is asking this question so adamantly. And so sometimes even fear makes people not actually now reach out. But again, back to what you're saying, the way we package the message, is it actually reaching out to the people who are intended to? Like Fred was saying, the age bracket comes in, and the kind of message you want to send out also is somewhere there. So at the end of the day, we still have a lot of questions even around social media and the messages you want to pass, and to who you want to pass, and to what age group, and if it's to any age group, it's to what kind of message do you pass to who, and what kind do you pass to who?
But I Steven, just kidogo. I also saw Mercy. I saw a comment from Mercy saying the way there are a lot of TikTok videos going around and people coming out. Coming out is diverse, of course, yeah. And I don't think this would be a sign for anything that people are ready. I don't know, that acceptance is now there because now people are doing TikToks. It's a good thing that yes, conversations on social media are happening and people are doing videos on TikTok. But videos on TikTok and videos, when you come to the public, when you come to the ground, TikTok. For example, I would be very out on TikTok and I do my skits, yeah, I come out on TikTok. But when I go back to my place or when I go back to my mother, then I'm back to that cocoon of mine. So yes, I'm this person. I'm an openly queer person on social media. But then when it comes to the reality that I'm living, then I'm not that lesbian person you keep seeing on TikTok. So there are still, I don't know if it's a sign, but just responding to Mercy, for personally, I would say it's still not a sign, because then some people are giving excuses that hiyo tu ni TikTok, nafanyanga tu vitu za TikTok because everyone is doing that thing on TikTok,
All right, that was quite an awesome one. I also just add other additional comments here coming from Joyce Olwatch. Joyce Olwatch says health integration is the best thing to partake, especially within public facilities, since they will be in existence for long. What we need to do is to continue sensitizing healthcare practitioners on matters LGBTQ and their health rights. We also have to stop self-stigma amongst us to help better our organizing. And then Steve Wanda Odiaga says there's also need to oversight most LGBTQ organizations in Kisumu. It's in public domain that Kisumu County has a lot of LGBTQ briefcase organizations that offer ghost projects and services. I don't know what we can put to this. Fred, starting with you.
Really?
Okwanyo, no, that's a hard one. That's a hard one. But what I know is there are many organizations that maybe they're active for specific duration. After some duration, they are no longer there. I don't know if we would call that a briefcase organization. There are some organizations that maybe we know they exist, but then we don't know where their offices are located. And then we also have organizations that are there working closely with other organizations at their capacity level and things like that. So that I don't know if that is the best term to use, maybe to call them as a ghost organization. But what I know is we have many organizations that maybe are not well established, probably because of maybe they don't have funding or they're still looking for funding. Vision Brothers ikiwa moja ya hizo organizations. So maybe that would lead to the kind of organization. So if we use the term ghost, that would mean a very serious term. I would go with the many organizations that still do not have a good establishment. They don't have maybe offices, and sustainability in those organizations are not very good. So they only operate when they have a few funds. After that, they go. Yes, still that's my take on that. It was a hard one.
Okay, perhaps to get from Paula being the one who is eldest in organizing here. Paula.
Oh, well, so Steve, that is interesting. It's funny, I don't even know how to answer that because I've never heard about a ghost LGBT organizing. I've never heard about it. I'm actually hearing it for the first time today. And I think for me, ghost, I don't know what maybe Steve would have meant by ghosts, because according to me, ghost means that they're purporting to be an organizing for the community, but they're actually not there, or maybe they're getting funding to organize for the LGBT communities, but they're actually not doing that, or maybe giving reporting or something about what they're not actually doing. But so far, I have not heard about any ghost organizing ever since I started walking this journey. But it would be nice actually for him to tell us, because we learn from people, you know. I can't know everything, you know. So it would be nice for our community members to feel free enough to just share with us, so that we see how we can support the communities, or maybe we can get more elaboration from those communities to see how maybe we can work together, or if there is any that is doing our work and we are not gaining from it. It would be nice for even our community members to just open up and share with us, because it's an open space for all of us. Steve.
Thank you so much for that. Perhaps to hear from Mauricio.
Thanks, Stephen.
Yes.
It's kind of politics that I don't even want to talk about, but I can say that I don't understand what he meant by ghost organization.
Yeah.
I don't know, because many organizations are being formed, but I can say that, you know, if you look back 10 years ago, you were having few organizations, but nowadays we're having so many organizations in Western Kenya, which I can say it is an achievement in terms of movement building. Let people form an organization, let people work. So long as they work for the interest of the community, there is no problem. Again, also, people normally believe that, you know, somebody like Ocheng, somebody who is known as a trans activist and also as a transgender man. So not all the leaders within this space are just out publicly as maybe members of the LGBT persons. It's not a matter of Ochieng having relationship with any woman within this region for people to say that he's one of us. Maybe he's a transgender guy. It's not a matter of Okwan Stephen to have a sexual relationship with a man within this region for them to prove that you are gay enough. You know, there is nothing like, you know, being an LGBT person. There is nothing like being gay enough or not being gay enough. So long as you work for the interest of the community and you work so good, that's all. Not everyone is public. We have bisexuals that have in their families. Must they come out publicly as GBMSM? We have transgender people are not medically transitioning because of other reasons. We live in a region where culture tradition is very tough on our side. Must they come publicly as members of the transgender community? So it's not a matter of somebody to be out as an LGBT person to be a leader within this space. You know yourself better, you know your sexual orientation better, and you're also valid. That's what I can say. But I don't think if there is something like ghost organization, unless if the person that has that concern know of any organization, then it's upon him.
Yeah. A last one from Dayo.
I think what I wanted to highlight, Mauricio has said, but truth is, and if we're being genuine, is that these conversations that happen, you know, but also working for the movement as activists, are we accountable? Because then it's the question of accountability that bring questions like what Stephen is asking. Are we accountable enough to the people that we work for the people that we want to see change in them? Are we accountable to them? Because if we're not accountable, ndio hizo ma questions za ghost nani zitakuja, unajua vitu kama hizo. So we must be accountable as a movement so that then we put a stop to such questions. And I mean, working for the movement is iko na mambo yake, you know. Na questions kama hizo zitakuja. But yeah, accountability is key. We must be accountable to avoid such questions.
Yes, and just to add something, I think it's there are some organizations which are at the norming stage. They are not fully established. They are having to baby steps, and the expectation currently is once you're in organizing, like you have to be outside there. We might at the end of the day put so much pressure to these young organizing to a point that they die even before they walk. So also to call for leniency, let's be the supporting system. Maybe the support system more than being like a weight, another weight, like to this organizing. At this juncture, I just want to say thank you. Thank you very much to the wonderful panel that I had here. Thank you very much, Mauricio. Thank you very much, Dio. Thank you very much, Paula. Thank you very much, Fred, for creating time to be here and to share with us these amazing insights today. And just also to pass my appreciation to the amazing participants we've had on Facebook and YouTube. Thank you for putting through those questions, those comments, those remarks. We take them with a humble heart. And also to appreciate ForumCiv of Eastern and Southern Africa for having supported and allowed Talanta Africa to convene this session. This, like I said before, is just one of the many conversations under the Kikao Junction series, and we are still having more conversations tomorrow. We're having a 10:30 a.m. to 12:30 p.m. session in the morning, and then we also have a session in the evening from 3 to 5 p.m. And we still welcome you to join us in those conversations. Thank you very much, and have a great and marvelous afternoon. Bye.
Bye.